Hello and welcome to Imp's WWE Adventures podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Help the network out by leaving us a 5-star review. Also give a donation directly through Red Circle and become one of the amazing community by joining the Social Suplex Discord. Link is in the description. Listen to the other top-notch shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Wrestling Articus Things, Trish and Sarah, Tunnel Talk, and Sam Brown is back with the AEW Match Guide, which should have released earlier Friday. Hey, I'm the one editing it. If it's not out, it's my own damn fault. So that should have been out earlier on the Friday. But on the AEW Match Guide return by self-employed Guested to talk down the top 10 AEW matches as voted by you people, voted by the Social Suplex people, voted by other people from all sorts of websites all over the place. A ton of people voted on this. It's awesome to once again be counting down the top 10. Anyway, my name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and this is your quick look back at the WWE week that was. 30 minutes, back in the drudge. Back in the WWE drudge after being all excited and stuff like all week about AEW because I've been editing their best matches and reliving those amazing atmospheres of like match after match. It's just been really difficult not to just sit there and watch all of them. Yeah, so coming back to WWE after a week of just being in AEW quite a lot. It's like, let's normalize. Let's get back to it. With that said, let's jump over to Friday Night Smackdown and what be happening with AJ and his blazer.
But this past week, my son graduated high school. And I got to be there. We had his graduation party at my house, and it was beautiful. So many friends and family were there. And it was literally at that point, clarity hit me upside the head. How many of these have I missed? So instead of being the phenomenal AJ Styles, maybe I stay at home and be a phenomenal father.
AJ Styles got his brightly coloured blazer moment. If you're not a long-term fan of WWE, you don't know what that means. Just Google Mark Henry blazer and it will come up. It will come up. AJ respectfully being given the main event time, teasing AJ possibly calling it a day throughout the show. As soon as he started talking in the ring, I was just like, okay, this feels like a massive homage to Mark Henry. They're able to play it off as, maybe it's not that, he's just wearing blue because he's on Smackdown, and he can play that off as maybe he was wearing salmon because it's a faded red. Gallows and Anderson out with him, ending that nothing breakup thing, but like, it's benefiting the selling of the retirement, so like, who really cares? It wasn't an angle anyone was invested in anyway. Corey telling his story about Styles helping him on an NWA show, properly leaning into this being a goodbye. But never trust a brightly coloured blazer in WWE. Never trust them. The line of, instead of being the phenomenal AJ Styles, maybe I stay at home and be a phenomenal father. Like, aww. One last too sweet with his good brothers, calling out Cody, thanking him for the match in Neon. Cody in teary-eye acting mode, thanking AJ and hooking him, posing to the crowd to applause and cheers. Lariato! Taking the man ringside, stylish class off the ring steps and fading off air with a baddie AJ close-up. I was like, oh, he's done it again, he's tricked us all. Just a full-on homage to the Mark Henry segment. Really leading into it. Really produce it like you're giving time to let everybody just soak this moment in. Put it in the main event was a really smart idea as well. You just really give them that time, that spotlight. The way it was done, it felt like it was done really well. But also, because of Mark Henry, it will always be in the back of your mind. You can't play that card again. It's the main thing. It's really nice to see her homage, but obviously, because I know what it's homaging, it's just one of those things where you can't play that card again, because you can't trick them again. So you're not really able to grab the audience in the same way, but it was still nice to do. Because AJ, on his return, didn't really feel like he had a massive direction. Then he had an amazing match in Neon with Cody, in front of that incredible, hot Leon crowd. And now they've actually got something for him to actually sink his teeth into. So, and I was saying a few weeks ago that because they gave him the crap theme, it felt like, oh, okay, they've not renewed the license of his expensive actual licensed music. Let's give him a crap theme for the remainder of his contract, But no, they've. It's a clever way to trick, I guess, if you're thinking about it. I don't think that's what it was, because they're giving loads of people shit themes. Like I look at Von Breaker and Raw. When you debuted in the main roster, you used to get a shit theme, as like a tester type of theme, and then once they showed that you are worth the investment, they would then give you like a stronger theme. But like Bryan Danielson's a good example. He got generic rock music for a couple of years, or at least that first year or so. Then he got the Flight of the Valkyries. However, now in NXT, you get a good theme that really fits your character and really helps you develop that character and lean into it and figure it out with your entrance. Then he comes on the main roster and you get generic shit. It's just like, it's so strange. It should not be in that order. That's really not how it should be. Anyway, but yeah, this was a solid segment, really giving AJ Styles a really strong direction. The reason I keep bringing the Mark Henry thing is because when I call it in the Marge, it basically just is beat for beat doing it again, but putting an AJ twist on it. So yeah, this might give AJ actually something. The reason it's kind of nice to see as well is because there's other characters around him also reacting to stuff. So he was dancing around with like LA Knight and things, but LA Knight is a genuinely strong... He's a genuinely strong character on SmackDown. Whereas AJ returned and it didn't really seem they fully knew what this character was going to be. It's like they figure it out over time. This is that time. This is them figuring out what they want to do with it. Now I'm looking forward to what they do with that. So yeah, not really more notes to do with that. It was the Mark Henry segment. And it was done well. It will never be the same as when it was done that first time, because that first time you just don't see it coming, because it's never been done before. There's no patterns to predict. You can't watch something and go, oh, that's the flow and structure of a thing I recognise, therefore I'm able to predict what's going to happen here. Well, no, you've never seen the pattern before, so you don't notice anything. It doesn't mean anything to you. Yeah, basically, if you just go online, basically a lot of online wrestling fandom, a lot of it is reading the flow and structure of a thing and then saying, oh, that means that blatantly this is going to happen. It's like, sometimes that's just foreshadowing, but predictable doesn't equal bad. And foreshadowing isn't them being predictable because it's told you what it's going to do. Telling you it's going to do something and then doing it isn't bad writing. Tangent. Anyway, I mean, to be fair, what I'm going to talk about next kind of is that as well. It's the telling you that Nia Jax was going to be Queen of the Ring, giving you Nia Jax as Queen of the Ring. The only negative for me is they also did the same with Walter. So for both tournaments, for the King of the Ring and the Queen of the Ring, we had a big Hoss wrestler who seemed like destined to win it. And those characters were like, I'm going to win. And then they won. So they foreshadowed them winning. And the characters tell us, yeah, I'm going to win. And then they went and won. Throughout the tournament, doing the best to make you believe a babyface could rise up and win. But nah. Anyway, Nia Jax is Queen of the Ring, brought out by Nick Aldis. Compared to Gunther, who has the crown, but is being more respectful of the ring, rather than call me king, I'm wearing the crown, I'm King Gunther now, blah, blah, blah. Nia Jax, however, leaning fully into being the queen in her promo. Not like Vince-era gimmicky nonsense, though. We're not sinking that low. She isn't calling herself Queen Jax or anything. She didn't do anything like that. She's not permanently wearing the crown. She, in the ring, in that moment, put it on just to emphasise what she was saying. She isn't now a queen gimmick. Queen Zelina, another one. Oh, King Sheamus. My God, there were so many bad things. It was a downside of the King of the Ring. Fans wanted King of the Ring back, but Vince had it in his head that the only version that worked was the 90s version, in that more cartoony WWE world, where when you won, you got the job as king. Everybody had a job, and when you win King of the Ring, you are king now, so you call yourself king, blah, 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 or whatever. It's the thing that kind of broke that was Brock Lesnar in 2003. Just that era from like 2001 to 2002-3, where winning the King of the Ring was to give a purpose to main event SummerSlam, and that's what they've copied here. Just using that instead of, you get the prestige and you now get a crappy king gimmick, King Corbin. How do I forget King Corbin? It's like, is King Booker the only good one? I don't think there's a lot of bad. There's a lot of bad. It was the downside. Like, if you love tournaments, you love the King of the Ring structure, the way it can elevate somebody. Unfortunately, in Vince's era, it came tied with you have now got a king or queen gimmick. It's like, no. No. I'm so happy we moved past that. Anyway, Nia Jax out here. She's quickly directing Bayley to come out for her to challenge at SummerSlam. When Piper Niven and Chelsea Green jump Bayley while she's making her entrance, not aligned with Jax, this just quickly giving Niven the Glasgow spot for the Scotland pop. As in, Niven's been featured with Chelsea Green, but I wouldn't say she's been given momentum and pushed as somebody who could go for the title, but, it's in Glasgow. If you just give her it on the show itself, she'll get an amazing reaction because it's in Glasgow, so you give Piper Niven the spot. Not been built up at all, but the atmosphere is going to be great. It's not going to help Clash at the Castle feel like a big show in that way, but it's going to be a nice atmosphere. An air of Battle of the Belts with this setup here. That's what it feels like to me. Match-up later in the night of Bayley and Naomi versus Piper Niven and Chelsea Green. Our goodies running all over, but Piper got to play savvy enough. Chelsea taking bumps to the face, but Niven sentoning in to swing the match all by her lonesome and draping an out of it Chelsea Green over the corpse of Niven's murder so that she can then be like, oh my god, I'm really good, yay. Also on SmackDown, Kevin Owens and Paul Heyman had a tremendous little promo. Heyman getting across his outright fear of what Solo has been turning the bloodline into, warning Kevin that they're not looking for a reason to take you out. They're looking for an excuse to take you out. Taking the back off sentiment but twisting it to deliver it like he's genuinely scared of what they'll do to KO. Compared to before where Roman made Heyman scared, now Heyman's scared for everybody else. For me, it feels like a conscious decision. That kind of focus just outward, in a way, really portraying them as dangerous for WWE. Seems to be the sentiment trying to get over bringing in the Tongans. I'm assuming we're going to bring Fatu later as well, just to really lean into that. Like, these guys aren't dangerous for like just the competitors or whatever. This is dangerous for WWE. They're going to have to do something to genuinely convince me of that. Because they're getting a few wins and things, they're getting a bit of momentum, but they're currently telling me that they're dangerous for WWE. They're telling me that they're criminals and violent, whatever. But I'm not seeing it. I'm not feeling it. I don't feel like these are dangerous, scary people to be allowed into WWE. Retribution felt more dangerous. They brought a chainsaw to the ring. They were doing absolute nonsense. Component that's missing is, in terms of like the world of show don't tell, and in wrestling, you can tell, but then at some point you've really got to show it. The bit I liked most about the KO and Heyman promo was that, of course, Kevin Owens didn't believe a single thing out of Heyman's mouth. After 4 years of fighting the bloodline, it makes all the sense that folk have been conditioned to know the wise man is always playing a game. Except this time he isn't. It doesn't matter how hard he tries to convince Kevin Owens, it just makes him believe the other way. They've seen Heyman try these tricks so many times that they've been conditioned just to learn he's always doing a trick. It's not a thing of, it's not a thing to casually just say, oh, don't believe a word he's saying because he's always lying. It's like, no. These characters are bouncing off the fact that you don't even have that thought because you immediately know he's lying and running a game. You don't have to think about it. So KO, obviously, immediately he's been like, you're bullshitting me. You're setting something up. Why am I going to believe a single word out of your mouth? But he's genuinely scared. He genuinely is fearful of what's happening here. Both of them sold it really, really well. Solo and the Gorillas out. I don't know what they're calling them. They just named them the Bloodline, but you can have a tag team name within a faction. The Usos in the Bloodline. I mean, I don't want to call them the Tongans. I feel like there's something more you can do to it there, especially if you're, painting them as dangerous criminals for WWE. Maybe don't call them after a country. Don't call them the Tongans. Don't put Tongans in that basket. Don't do that. Conveniently, the Gorillas' promoted match opponents, the Street Profits, were out to even the odds for KO, which through the ad break then took us into Street Profits versus the Gorillas of Destiny. The Profits showing a tad more viciousness in the fight so that the new Bloodline lads can reflect as being even worse than them. A great camera angle for the assisted blockbuster from the Profits. Tonga lower as the hot head charging and just getting flat out beaten. However, Tama Tonga made the sneaky tag to snatch the win with his crap finisher because he can't do the gun stun. And then he gets the win. It was what it was, like, fine, whatever. Just in terms of other notes on SmackDown, yeah, I'm already through. Not a lot to talk about this week. Tommaso Ciampa and Austin Theory had folk questioning whether a Theory face turn could be bubbling after Waller went off at ringside to commentary. Both were kind of bland as singles guys. At least give them a minute of time to grow together. I personally just read this as your standard tag champ losers in a singles match set up for a tag team title match. I wasn't really reading too much into it. LA Knight is looking for Logan Paul's United States Championship, so that's continuing to build. A rare Apollo Crews sighting as he got to be the lad what Andrade got to beat. Escobar trying to use the man's history with Garza as a means to recruit him. In a nice surprise, Apollo got to jump Garza in the locker room after the ad break. But the main Andrade news was that, in terms of where Andrade was kind of positioned in AEW and wanting to be someone who's featured as a bit stronger, and going back to WWE, he then finds himself main eventing WWE Speed on Twitter in a nothing thing for their Twitter championship against Carl Anderson in whatever that thing is. He's like, he's He's lower than he was. He is so much lower than he was presented in AEW, like, immediately. Immediately. Anyway, that was SmackDown. The main draw of SmackDown is AJ's Blue Blazer. If you want to check out the Blue Blazer, it ended the show. It's the main event thing. Go and see those highlights. Not really a lot else. There's a lot of bubbling stuff. Setting characters to go in a direction to do a thing. Not really a lot else for me to talk about. So anyway, with that said, let's jump on over to the red one. Let's jump on over to Monday Night Raw, drawing in the YouTube numbers with kissing. Like, no, no, not like a, oh, that's lovely. Like, no. It's the it's the cheekier type of trying to get views for things. Anyway, let's jump on over to Raw. Let's jump on over to Raw.
Spring is in the air at Littleton Coin Company, and we want to help you brighten your collection. Visit us at littletoncoin.com all month long to enjoy 15% off your purchase. With a wide selection of coins, paper money, supplies, and more, Littleton Coin Company has something for every collector's taste. Use promo code SPRING at littletoncoin.com for 15% off your purchase all month long. Restrictions apply. Littleton Coin Company. Serving collectors since 1945.
This ought to be good.
Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan. I didn't get to talk about this last week. The closing angle that didn't air on television of Liv Morgan kissing Dominic Mysterio in an angle which is interesting because they've got Liv Morgan trying to manipulate Dom into leaving the Judgment Day to help her remain as champion in a way, in doing that manipulating. It's an interesting angle. Interesting, I feel like he's doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. We'll talk about what happened this week as well, with Dominic Mysterio and Liv Morgan opening the show. Like, I know a lot of people just found this awkward, but I was sat there like, are we doing a custody of Dom story? Like, are we? Are we doing it? Are we actually doing it? So I felt like I had a different reaction from most people, where a lot of focus seemed to be on the segment itself. I must have zoned out during the segment itself, instead of looking a bit bigger picture, being like, oh, so when Ripley comes back, they can do a custody of Dom storyline. And I was all for that. I love that idea, doing a genuine custody of Dom storyline. That said, I don't think that's where this is going. I would love to see that. Or I can't remember I saw somebody, with someone like Jordan Grace or someone. Yeah, if we're not doing the ladder match for the custody of Dom when Rhea comes back, like, what are we building to? The answer is just Liv trying to take away everything from Rhea Ripley, for Rhea Ripley then to just turn up and beat her up. That, for me, that separates Dom from Ripley when Ripley comes back as mega babyface Ripley, and you've got her separated from the part of her that was getting mega heat so she can just get mega cheers. And you have Dom then side with Liv, and he carries his mega heat over to Liv. I'm assuming that's what they're going to do. I always predict the safest option and stuff with WWE. And for me, that's the safest option. My most exciting thing is, and probably what AEW would do, would be the nerding out thing of, let's do a custody of Dom thing and do a huge reference to the custody of Dom match with Eddie and Ray. That feels too AEW. WWE is the safer option of, oh no, they're just going to do this so they can get Rhea Ripley in a position where she can just be solely cheered, and you have Dom align his heat with Liv Morgan. That's what I think they're going to be doing. Liv chin-wagging about revenge being sweet, but then boasting about kissing Dom. Apply wrestling rules of say their name and they will come out. Out comes Dominic Mysterio. Liv's plan is to take everything from Rhea, including Dominic Mysterio. This injury may have led to WWE finding their way to get nuclear heat Mysterio away from the massively cheered Rhea Ripley and to pass that off onto Liv Morgan. It's just the nature of that they're doing it with the Liv Morgan character counts as harassment. I mean, especially, this is the type of angle that you would see in the early 2000s. And Dominic, the angle that they're doing, is that Dominic doesn't want this. She keeps doing it in a workplace environment. Like, I mean, WWE, if there's any place where this is just going to fly anyway, WWE. Training the audience to go, what's the big deal? Do I cut that? I don't know. But it's the type of angle you'd see in the early 2000s late stuff. Not the kind of angle that you get really nowadays. Trying to manipulate somebody in a kind of harassing way. In a way where the whole point throughout the show they'd be like, Dom is doing everything to avert his eyes to not look at her, and making a big deal of it when he does finally start to break and not be able to do that towards the end of the show. It's like, yeah, this is a workplace environment, guys. Surely you thought this storyline through, and it's going to be going somewhere in the next couple of weeks. Let's kind of step away from it being, potentially a harassment storyline, like possibly. It's, the phrase of let it play out. For me, it's more, I'd make it pretty clear you're going in a direction sooner rather than later. I understand that they're trying to build something for the Rhea Ripley return. So you're seeing Dom get manipulated by Liv, so that when Rhea comes back and she says she's just manipulating you, we've seen it in detail to a point where the most dumb people in the world know that this is the story that's happening here, where Dom has been manipulated by Liv. Oh, actually, no, I'm on social media. I know what people are like. They'll look at the little look at the end of it and be like, oh, Dom liked her all along. It's like, everything commentary was saying, the entire point of the show, they spent a whole 3 hours basically trying to get across that it's more that her manipulation is breaking him, not that, oh, he liked the pretty lady the entire time. But, yeah, I've taught myself out of it. But yeah, the entire point of it is to then swing Rhea Ripley into full-on babyface. For me, that's what this whole arc is screaming. Focus currently is on Liv Morgan manipulating Dom, but Rhea Ripley's the actual focus of what they're doing here. And maybe that's what's kind of maybe led to the slight thing of maybe tweak it a bit or fast forward just this tiny portion so we're not dwelling on the possible harassment in the workplace bit for too long. Yeah, maybe Ripley's return may actually decide what's going to happen there. I feel like it'd be very easy then to just fall into topics of WWE harassment and just the fact that this is this is a bit... In terms of Judgment Day as well, the opening bit set up Damian Priest setting Judgment Day onto the task of showing everyone why they run Monday Night Raw. Because I do really feel like, even though Damian Priest has been champion, Judgment Day feel weak, incredibly weak. And they've put effort into making sure that whenever Damian Priest comes out, he has been their problem solver. He's been on form whenever he does go out, but Judgment Day as a whole get beat so often and feel so useless that Damian Priest is being hurt by it. And there's been little things of making it seem like Damian Priest is either trying to be a respectful champion or they're turning him a little bit more babyface, so that either when things fall apart, you can have Damian Priest rip through the Judgment Day, or you can have Damian Priest start to be the strong leader over the course of time. Part of me thinks just give Drew the belt and do Drew versus Punk. I'll get into that actually when it's time to talk about that. So in terms of the Judgment Day on Raw, Finn Balor faced Dragon Lee, the man you knew who would be on the show after a week of remember him memes, getting over the interference numbers odds of the Judgment Day. Now they've got Carlito helping out on their beatings. Although McDonough picking that fight with Braun Strowman continues to beckon his reckoning every week. Priest then manipulated Carlito into challenging Braun Strowman. Big man smash. Dom tries to make it better. Liv stopping Strongman from beating Dom up. JD swinging the chair over Strowman's knee over and over and over as Finn and Carlito go all stompy stomp. But that works as a distraction as no one's keeping an eye on Liv as they make sure to note Dom breaking his ability to not look away at this point. Then we flow into the main event of Damian Priest versus Rey Mysterio. First note, both WWE and AEW having a totally invested and amped up old lady on the front row. Bring back the World of Sport vibe of old ladies equipped with handbags. Bring that back. Second note, this main event was given plenty of time to play out. Rey easily giving Priest his best match since becoming champion, which I don't really feel like is a difficult bar at the moment. It's just kind of been relatively average. I think that's my main critique of Priest World Championship reign is it just kind of has been. It just kind of is. I'm way more excited about every other storyline on Monday Night Raw at the moment. Priest himself doesn't feel that interesting. And even in Priest's title match at Clash at the Castle, Drew McIntyre is the interesting party. Damian Priest doesn't feel important. He doesn't feel interesting. And my worry is I generally feel like we're just going to get a Punk interference. And Priest remains champion. But all of the focus and the buzz is on everyone else around the card. And I'm almost at a point of... It's a mixture of him not really just be given the stuff to generate buzz with, but also buzz isn't being generated with him as champion. You can still do the interesting storylines you're doing with the Judgment Day in terms of the way that he's trying to take over his leadership with Rey's absence and the way that the Judgment Day kind of shifting and changing a bit and the way that he is the problem solver. He is the guy that comes out and fixes what the others making their messes. However, as world champion, everybody else's stories are more interesting than his. That's a detriment in terms of like being the world champion. You can't go too many pay-per-views being in that state. Surely he's got to get to a point where you are the focus of that. And if we don't just shift the title over onto Drew versus CM Punk, then Damian Priest I feel like the other matches are going to overshadow him again. And yes, he can throw like kind of rested Seth Rollins, although I think he's going to be out longer, into a match like that. I've got no idea who you have him face at SummerSlam, and arguably it screams that he should lose the title at SummerSlam. We'll see what happens with Money in the Bank. It's Gunter. I'm an idiot. We know that Gunter's the challenger, which is another scream to have Drew McIntyre win to give us Drew versus Gunter again. We can see what happens with Money in the Bank as well, and they've built up Jay as a guy to be singing about that on this episode. But in this main event, right as the action properly amps, the interferences start flowing out, the faction numbers neutralising each other, Mysterio pulling out a corkscrew plancha like he's half his age. But that was enough for Priest to snap in and south of heaven chokeslam the poor man for the win, when Drew McIntyre in to set focus on his title match next Saturday in Scotland, doing a lot to pull Priest's struggles into view, his faction not stable at all, but he's firing on all cylinders. Fighting off Drew to chokeslam the Scot through the announce table instead. It's nice seeing Priest getting momentum on telly, but I'm fully expecting his world title defence to either end in Punk interference or just flat out end. And the Jay match wasn't that interesting to me. Amazing atmosphere, and Jay is incredibly over. But again, he's another guy where the other person feels way more interesting than the champion himself. Same case with Drew here. The other guy feels Priest isn't getting elevated by these. He's a part of the worry, because he's in these matches doing stuff, but his character isn't really being built. His character's not being built up. He's not really getting that development. And I feel like there has to be a movement within the Judgment Day to help elevate around him, and either they become more competent or he starts to really take control. Something kind of needs to shift a bit if he's going to stay champion. Because at the moment, everybody else feels more interesting than him. So you're not like, oh, baddie retained title. You're like, oh, character's not as interesting retained title. Which, like, they're not the same kind of heat reaction. Like, really, I'm just set for the reaction of, why would Punk cost Drew when letting Drew win would get him a World Championship match? When we know the next flow of a WWE story is for Punk to cost the lad for the moment of the big reaction. Like, do you turn down CM Punk costing Drew the match in Glasgow to nuclear heat from the Scottish? Sometimes when I think of something like that, I'm like, oh, but is that like an AEW thing where they look at the location and go for it? Actually, no, it feels more WWE just because it wouldn't make sense for the Punk character where Punk could get his championship match, which he was all about with WrestleMania stuff. We could have Drew as champion and then Punk can face him. Punk gets his title match, but with Gunter being there as well. Also, if Punk is injured for longer, he can still do Drew versus Gunter at SummerSlam and maybe you have Punk cost him there to get the big pop in Glasgow. Then you get Punk costing him. So he has a longer reign, but now Gunter's champion. Or you just cost him in Glasgow, get Punk nuclear heat in Glasgow, and then he can feed it off elsewhere. So I like the idea of someone being a mega heel in one location. The Bret Hart thing when he was a bad guy, but in Canada he's the most over babyface in the world. Like, with CM Punk, yeah, could have him be over everywhere. But in Glasgow, he's one hated son of a bitch. Stuff like that. I like that kind of vibes. And Sami Zayn and Chad Gable building to a perfect Alpha Academy blow-up. Sami calling out Chad to put an end to his abuse. Maxine out with a written message instead, joined by Otis and Tozawa to deliver it. Starting with From Master Gable is always a great start. Having Maxine deliver the insults instead was a great touch, changing it up a little bit from recent weeks. Loud Otis chants as usual, just showing this entire thing is working in these segments. Cheering as Sami tries to amp the three up to break away from Gable, but it was a setup for Chad to attack from behind. The Academy, one by one, finding their bravery to stop him. Gable still berating them. The cheer so loud when Otis finally finds it in him, through Chad really letting off on Maxine and Tozawa. The closing swing being Otis having his back turned as Gable and Sami brawl, whipped into Otis's back as the Master manipulates the big man into slamming Zayn, but Otis doesn't stay after that and pose with Gable or anything. Instead, just goes off to ringside to carry Tozawa on his shoulders and to pray in his arms to the back. So his loyalty isn't to Gable, his loyalty is to the Alpha Academy guys. But then you get logic through there as well. Like, the reason that he does what he does is because he's actually trying to protect them rather than like not wanting to turn on Gable or anything. Which is a nice little note you can now build on. In terms of other notes from Monday Night Raw, Belair and Cargill were invited over by Starks and Baszler, building into an impromptu amping each other up into having their tag title match right there and then, aka we made you number one contenders but we didn't actually have any plans or really anything to do for it. So blow it off on a random TV show. The actual thing of note here, though, was that after the ad break, the rest of the match was all captured in one ringside camera shot with no cuts whatsoever. So production me being like, being fed good. Just walking around the bottom right ring post as the action swung until Jade snapped into the action from the left of the ring, and that's when we swung around the bottom left ring post to get that kind of new fresh angle with a new fresh person jumping into the fray. An eventual camera cut with Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn interfering for the no contest, building up to them getting their tag team title shots, which seemed to be the actual point of this. Yeah, building to something, trying to create an actual angle for the tag titles to actually go somewhere rather than you're number one contenders, you'll have your match, you'll lose, rinse and repeat. Like, no, you can do some. You can actually build some character stuff here to make it seem like a bigger deal when they're all defeated. Also, you could just do a triple threat here and have Belair and Cargill just beat up all of them. I wouldn't mind that. They're the superheroes. Paint them as superheroes. Sheamus had a good old collabo with Ludwig Kaiser. This really did a lot to help the Imperium lads step out of Gunther's shadow a tad. I went on social media that day, people going crazy for this. Like, no, it was good. It was good. It was good. Like, Kaiser got to really show some shine here, and he snuck the win as well. Yeah, this is pretty good in terms of with Gunther going for the main championship. There's suddenly a Imperium space in the mid card. This did a lot to kind of push Kaiser as a potential future guy once we've got past the Sami Zayn Gable big storyline. Ricochet taped up backstage ahead of his murder by Bron Breakker, continuing to build Breakker really well. It's just a shame about his music, and they've added more barky barks at the start. So it's like as he comes out, it's the barking that's building up, and it's almost like trying to get the crowd to go hur, 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 with him, like it's a Brody King scenario. It's trying to get that amping, but then his music starts and it's generic bullshit. I get the idea that it's meant to be high energy, high tempo, riffing guitars. But as he's coming out to do, I'm not feeling scared and amped up of the man that we got the barkings a few seconds ago. It's like no. The Death Rebel not being renewed at the end of 2024 might be the next thing in terms of WWE's production. Just the full camera production being completely taken over has been a huge positive overhaul. I feel like the music is this, because it stood out when it happened, to be fair, in 2022 when suddenly everyone's getting shit themes that are unmemorable, indistinguishable, and it was the case in this year's Men's Rumble where music would hit and people in the crowd, they're not getting huge reactions because people don't know who they are because the music doesn't tell you anything. Some of them are almost indistinguishable from each other, or they're too close or whatever. Bron Breakker here essentially has the generic rock music that you get when you're a star that's possibly been built up at your lower card. They haven't really got a massive thing for you, like Dolph Ziggler's first theme, stuff like that, or Drew McIntyre's first theme. I'm not talking about Broken Promises, whatever it's called. No, the more generic one before that. Search for his first theme. That one. It's that Bron Breakker's been given that one now. He's come to the main roster after he had a more unique one in NXT. The NXT team fit his more colourful persona a lot more, rather than what they've got going here on the main roster. But yeah, this music isn't it. You heard my rendition of it. That's not how it was at all. In the match, though, he has some really cool spots, like finding a way to make the Frankensteiner really impressive, where stepping up to the top rope, no hands, then saluting with both feet on the top rope before hitting the Frankensteiner. It's like, oh, that's actually really cool. Then did a great setup for the spear. So the crowd were white hot for that. Kiana James got her main roster in-ring debut with Natalya. It was nice to see her actually get something. Not really a lot to write home about. The finisher didn't really get a huge reaction, but it was nice to see her actually get that step to have an in-ring match. Get more licks in and the crowd to actually start to care and actually react to who she is and whatever. And finally, the screen glitches continued. But the dates that was teased was either at Clash at the Castle or the Monday Night Raw after Clash in the Castle. It's that week. So, remembering that date, you should have me talking about the reveal on this podcast in a couple weeks' time. So not next week. Not this week, the week after. My birthday week. Because it's mental. What's going on with that one? Where it's Clash at the Castles on the Saturday. The Euros, which is absolutely massive, the countries in Europe are watching the football, that starts on Friday with 3 games every single day. That's how I forget through the highlights of all to there's matches at 2 p.m, 5 p.m, and 8 p.m for 2 weeks straight. So it's a lot of football. So that starts on the Friday. House of the Dragon comes out on my birthday, which is also Father's Day, which is the Sunday. We've got The Boys coming back. That new Star Wars show came out. I've not really checked out yet. And I swear there was a final thing I'm forgetting about. There's so much like really strong TV to get through. And they're all starting within this week. Like, slow down, lads, slow down. Yeah, but also, that same week, we're going to get the screen glitches. So we want to include that in the hype of all the other stuff that's happening. We're getting the screen glitches thing paying off. We're going to see what that is. Anyway, with that, I say thank you for listening, liking, engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciate it. Never take it for granted. This week, you may have heard enough of me. You may have had enough of me after I've guested on the AEW match guide, which released earlier on the Friday. And this should be releasing later on the Friday. So you got a lot of me. You got a lot of me. Making up for me having no voice last week and then having to be like, I'm so sorry. You got double me this week. So huzzah. Also, tell me how you like the AEW match guide. I did a full, massive edit of that show. So please let me know what you think of that as well. Put a lot of time and effort into making sure that was a really high quality return for the AEW match guide for the top 10. Anyway, so with that, thank you for listening to this as well. As I fall back into the dredges of WWE, I'll be back next week to talk about more WWE in the final build-up to Clash at the Castle. So it's the week before it's interesting. We're going to get it's the go-home week. I bet you I'm going to use the phrase, things continue to bubble. That is my prediction. It might be a very short show next week because it's the week after that's interesting. So with that, I bid you adieu. Adios.
That's the sound of your current hype level at the gas pump. But brace yourself for something fuel-nominal, because Unleaded 88 is about to take the hype to a whole new level. Unleaded 88 is cheaper, cleaner, and greener than regular unleaded. Plus, it's homegrown, making Unleaded 88 the clear choice at the pump and totally worth the hype. So pump it up with Unleaded 88, brought to you by Iowa Corn.